You threw every spark you had, waiting for the explosion that always proved you mattered. When fury bounced off the walls but never off him, the silence echoed louder than any scream you'd heard before. You needed theatrics, red raw throats, shattered dishes, dissolving apologies. Past partners gave you that stage. Conflict was confirmation. The Sigma male, though, dismantles the stage before the play begins. He peers at the scaffolding, measures the weight of every prop, and decides your script is unworthy of performance. Calling him cold is your last attempt at ignition, because admitting he's in control exposes the truth about you. The chaos you wielded was never about justice or healing. It was about commanding the room. Below are 10 savage truths, now unchained and expanded, explaining why your label is a mirror, why his stillness is a scalpel, and why your old methods collapse in the presence of a man who refuses to audition for your drama. 1. He didn't react because he's not on trial. A courtroom loses power the second the defendant walks out. You raised your voice to the ceiling, stacking improvised charges. Negligence, indifference, betrayal. Each accusation fluttered like paperwork in a gale, but he never stepped behind the podium. The Sigma male knows an emotional subpoena is self-issued. He cannot be dragged into a hearing he never agreed to attend. He recognizes the law of weaponized guilt. Whoever feels forced to defend automatically grants the accuser authority. So he stands silent, hands in pockets, a private jury of one. He measures evidence by behavior, not volume. While you hiss for confessions, he notes contradictions, times your actions disprove your words. Moments when you escalate without cause. The velocity of your anger versus the gravity of the facts. When you finally pause for breath, expecting rebuttal, you're greeted by a verdict of absence. The judge walked out. The audience left with him. All that remains is the echo of your closing argument addressed to empty chairs. 2. You thought he was cold because he didn't feed your fire. Flames love fuel, remove the oxygen, and they call you frost. Rage was your currency. Every relationship before him traded in it. Bigger blow-ups equaled bigger makeups, each cycle forging a false intimacy. You mistook sparks for sparkle. The Sigma male carries an internal fire extinguisher loaded with composure. He spots the pattern instantly, the crescendo of slights engineered to trigger reaction, the volcanic words meant to scorch boundaries until they bend. Instead of dousing you for hero points, he simply seals the exits of his emotional factory, starving the blaze of attention. Deprived of oxygen, your flame sputters, then smolders into self-reflection if you're brave enough to inhale the smoke. In panic, you label him ice, but ice is merely water that has the discipline to remain solid under heat. His restraint burns your pride precisely because it refuses to burn at all. 3. He wasn't distant. He was disengaging. Detachment is not desertion. It's demolition of a faulty bridge. Watch closely. Distance is built in millimeters. First, the slight pause before he answers. The neutral nod instead of the fervent yes. The evening he chooses a book over decoding your newest riddle. Where average men cling, the Sigma male performs emotional mathematics. He tallies energy deposited versus energy extracted. Once the ledger glows crimson, he doesn't beg the banker for credit, he closes the account. You're accustomed to men paying overdraft fees in the form of apologies, gifts, or frantic texts. His calm withdrawal feels like an audit. Every emotional ATM you once controlled suddenly stamped insufficient incentive. So you brand him distant, ignoring the obvious. He's still in the room, you're simply outside his interest radius. 4. He didn't argue, because he didn't respect the premise. Some invitations look like conversations but smell like traps. The premise was that he owed you a defense. Yet the Sigma male rejects faulty axioms. He knows a crooked frame yields a crooked painting. Your argument hinged on feelings presented as facts, timelines stitched with guesswork, motives assigned without consent. To step into that arena would be to accept the rules you wrote. He declines, not out of fear, but out of intellectual hygiene. You call that cowardice. He calls it critical thinking. While you rehearse your next monologue, he is miles away mentally drafting a life that doesn't require fact-checking every emotional newsflash you broadcast. 5. His silence wasn't empty. It was evidence. Speak enough and your patterns sign the confession. Silence is his lab. Every rant you deliver becomes raw data. Tone spikes, word choices, revisionist history, the exact moment the tears switch on, they micro-pause before you deploy a guilt trip. He stores it in a mental vault labeled behavioral forensics. Later, away from your orbit, he runs analytics. How often does accusation replace accountability? Which insults resurface like recycled passwords? What triggers escalate beyond proportion? By the time you whimper, "Why won't you talk to me?" he's compiled a dossier FBI clean. The case doesn't go to court, it goes to self-preservation, and the sentence he delivers is distance without parole. 6. He didn't get even, he got away. Vengeance is taxation, freedom is tax-exempt. You cracked your knuckles, bracing for the return volley. Rehearsed apologies mixed with defiance, whichever served survival once his counterattack arrived. But he never drew his sword. He sheathed it, turned, and walked toward horizons you can't map. That absence roasted hotter than any retaliation because it denied you the role of victim turned hero. Sigmas understand revenge chains you to the offender. Why drag a corpse through tomorrow? He'd rather travel light, so he cashes in the only true currency, attention. The moment he spends it elsewhere, your relevance collapses like a market bubble. 7. You called him emotionless because he controls what you can't. Mastery looks like mystery to the undisciplined. Emotions aren't absent in him, they're architected. Anger lives behind a guarded gate. Grief sleeps on silk cushions. Love moves like a quiet tide, powerful yet contained. You equate loud with real. He equates loud with leaking. While you spill feelings into every crevice, he funnels his into art, career, physical craft places where storm energy turns to structure. Calling him emotionless is like calling a dam dry because the water isn't flooding your shoes. Meanwhile, an ocean waits behind concrete you can't crack. 8. He let you talk because he wanted you to show your hand. A magician loves spectators who rush to reveal their own tricks. You believed airtime equaled authority. The longer you spoke, the taller you felt. Yet every syllable unfurled your methods. Sudden self-pity, retrofitted memories, blame disguised as curiosity. He nodded, filing each tactic under categories. Diversion, projection, emotional extortion. When the puzzle was complete, he didn't slap the pieces across your face. He simply set the finished picture on the shelf marked lessons. By the time you realized silence was never submission, he had all the information required to never need another page from your playbook. 9. He never looked back because closure is a weapon. The need for closure is often the need for one last chance to recalibrate control. You dangled closure like bait. Let's talk one more time. I just need to explain. Translation, I need to reopen negotiations. The Sigma male recognizes that the act of explaining can morph into emotional hostage-taking. He already penned his own ending, a single-sentence summary filed under done. So he withholds the dialogue you crave, not out of cruelty, but out of wisdom. He knows reopening your tab means service fees in hours, energy, and psychological rent. He'd rather invest in futures that pay peace dividends. 10. He wasn't cold, he was clear. Temperature is relative, boundaries are absolute. Cold implies absence of warmth, but the Sigma male is not a winter, he's a thermostat. He sets the climate to conditions that grow character, not chaos. When you feel frostbite, check your own attire. Thin layers of accountability, holes in self-awareness, gloves missing empathy. The chill is not in him, it's in your unpreparedness for a season you didn't expect. His clarity strips artificial heat, the friction mistaken for connection, the fever sold as passion. What remains feels polar only to those allergic to honesty. Clarity isn't cruel. It's clean air at altitude. You blame the mountain for the breath you never trained for. On a final note, when peace feels hostile, examine the wars you've memorized. You once choreographed chaos, believing anyone worth loving would dance in your fire. The Sigma male doesn't even step onto the coals. He watches, notes the temperature, and chooses a path where feet don't blister for sport. Call him cold if you must. Labels are souvenirs for tourists who never left the gift shop. He's already on a flight you can't board destination. Sovereignty. In his quiet departure, you will finally hear the loudest lesson. Some hearts don't harden, they heighten. They rise above the noise so only true signals reach them. The play is over. The theater is empty. The curtain fell without applause because the only audience that mattered chose peace over encore. And peace, unlike chaos, never begs to be understood. He wasn't cold, he was complete.